Lessons Not Yet Learned is a podcast that uncovers the costly mistakes that businesses keep making and how to finally move past them. Through storytelling, candid conversations, and expert perspectives, I'm on a mission to challenge outdated thinking, bring those overlooked lessons to the surface, and drive meaningful change, one story at a time. Hi, and welcome back to this bonus episode of Lessons Not Yet Learned. I'm your host, Kiran Kachela, and today we are talking about something I'm really passionate about. As we start to see AI being rolled out everywhere and everybody experimenting with it, we're starting to sort of see different strategies come to light in different organizations and different reactions to risk. And I've been really interested in just observing some of those different approaches. And what I would say is, I've seen a lot of those sort of 100-page policy documents, and I've seen a lot of steering committees established, but essentially what I haven't seen is the risks being addressed. So it kind of feels like there's been a lot of tick box exercises, but without actually making sure that these policies are actually adopted. So my message today is to stop writing policy after policy after policy and start building real protection. Now, the reality is, in most organizations, teams are out there experimenting. We have so many available tools at our fingertips, and most of those are really cheap or sometimes free. And so you've got employees out there experimenting with the different tools, which, I think is a great thing, but there does need to be some management around the risk. There does need to be some governance and protection. Now, in many cases, I would say that a lot of those employees aren't even telling their employers that they're using them. So you kind of have a big blind spot, and that really does expose some risk. You can imagine probably at least half or a third or maybe 2/3 of your employees potentially are putting company information into AI tools that you don't even know about, and you have no idea what the protection is around that data. These tools are not vetted, these tools are not company approved, and what is our instinctive response when we see this happen? What we do is we go and put another 100-page policy in. We go and send another company-wide communication in. We start to restrict as much as possible, making it so restrictive sometimes that actually you're hindering progress and actually falling behind. If you look at road safety as an example, you'll see the white dotted lines on the roads that indicate where we are supposed to stay. And you've also got signage up on the pavements that tell us what the speed limit is and certain rules that we're meant to follow. But the reality is all of the other measures that are there to enforce compliance that actually make us follow the rules on the road. So things like speed cameras, things like, you've got lane assist in your cars, things like having police enforcement that could stop you at any time. All of these different measures actually ensure that there is compliance on the roads. So the question here is, what are your AI guardrails in your business? What other enforcement measures over and above just that policy document that you have or that steering committee that you developed, what other measures are there? For me, policies alone don't work. You do actually need to think about how you're going to turn that strategy into execution, and it needs a layered approach. So for me, the first layer that needs to be worked on is governance. And when I talk about governance, what I'm talking about is defining your risk appetite, defining accountabilities, making sure that AI governance and best practice is discussed as part of board meetings. It's actually an agenda item. The next layer is your operating model. This is your processes, your training, your user guidance, your policies around usage, that practical guidance that your team need to be able to know what to follow. And no, not the 100-page policies. This needs to be something practical, easy to use, easy to access. At my company, CI Projects, we have really thought about how we roll this out. And we've tried not to create this bureaucratic sort of structure, because that actually just causes more issues downstream and it does hinder progress. However, we allow some experimentation, but within certain guardrails. People understand the processes, the escalation routes, the processes to get things approved, who's accountable, what sort of questions they should be asking when using AI, when their teams are using AI as managers. Giving them some practical guidance is really important. Linking with that is really being clear on your processes. So diving deep into your processes, are you clear on what the approval process is for asking for a new request on, trying out and experimenting a new AI tool? And how do you assess and evaluate that? How do you make sure that it's not just a computer says no response? Because otherwise people will go and find a workaround and they'll do it behind your back. It's a bit like, teenagers. I've got 2 teenagers and, it's trying to find the right balance. You want them to experiment, you want them to learn, but you don't want them to, you don't want to say no to everything, because otherwise they'll try and go behind your back, and you definitely don't want that. So be clear on those processes, and also think about escalation. What is the escalation route? What is that case for change that people can put forward? Because you want to encourage experimentation. And the last layer, and very important layer, is the technical safeguards. So making sure you've got content filters, understanding if personal information has been leaked, having some detection, making sure that you've got the right restrictions in place technically to detect where something may be misused. The lesson here today is that governance sets the rules, but it's the processes, the systems, and the people that actually enforce them. So we need to think differently. We need to have a more holistic and layered approach to making sure that we're driving best practice. Now at CI Projects, one of the things that has really helped us is actually going through the certification process for things like Cyber Essentials and ISO 27001. It's made sure that we are implementing best practice, thinking about our users, thinking about our customers, and really understanding what protection means for us and what our risk appetite actually is. Making sure that we've got a mechanism for monitoring and continuous improvement. There is a reason that those standards are known as best practice. And so I would encourage you all to, whether you're going down the certification route, whether you're already certified and perhaps not applying those, or whether you just want to apply those principles alone, I would encourage you all to start thinking about those best practices and start to bring those into your day-to-day organization. Step away from the 100-page policy. Start to look at things more holistically. Thanks so much for joining today's episode. On the next episode, we are continuing on this exciting topic of AI. So I look forward to seeing you next time.